Welcome to Module 38 on Class of Perspectives on Personality. The first thing we'll discuss are the theories that exist that inform our understanding of personality. Personality is defined as an individual's characteristic pattern of thinking, feeling, and acting. There are two historically significant personality theories: Freud's psychoanalytic theory, where childhood sexuality and unconscious motivations influence our personality, and humanistic theories, which focus on our inner capacities for growth and self-fulfillment. In psychoanalytic theory, psychodynamic theorists were inspired by Freud. Humanistic theories were developed by Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers. These two broad perspectives provided inspiration for later theorists such as trait theorists and social cognitive theorists. So what is personality? So if we look at psychodynamic theories, it's a focus on the dynamic interaction between the conscious and unconscious mind, including associated motives and conflicts. The humanistic approach looks at the focus on our inner capabilities for growth and self-fulfillment. Trait theories examine characteristic patterns of behavior which are labeled as traits. Social cognitive theories explore the interaction between traits and social context. In psychodynamic theories, human behavior is viewed as a dynamic interaction between unconscious and conscious minds and associated motives and conflicts. These theories are descended from Sigmund Freud's psychoanalysis. Freud attributed personality to thoughts and actions to unconscious motives and conflicts. The techniques used in treating psychological disorders seek to expose and interpret unconscious tensions. A challenge in psychoanalysis is that Freud believed that these unconscious motives and conflicts were not known to us, so therefore we really did not have control of them unless we sought treatment, which was psychoanalysis. So how did Sigmund Freud develop his view of the unconscious mind? As you can see, on the left is a picture of Sigmund Freud, who lived from 1856 to 1939. Freud observed patients whose disorders had no clear physical explanations, concluded their problems reflected unacceptable thoughts and feelings hidden away in the unconscious mind. A caveat to this, and why some people think that Freud's theories are not very applicable, is that it is reported that a large majority of the people that Freud worked with happened to be young aristocratic females who were also members of families that Freud had political and financial alliances with. Some suggest that Freud changed their diagnoses and reported that to the political allies and financial allies for fear of losing those alliances. According to Freud, the unconscious is a reservoir of mostly unacceptable and unaware thoughts, wishes, feelings, and memories. Freud used a technique called free association, which was a method of exploring the unconscious in which the person relaxes and says whatever comes to mind, no matter how trivial or embarrassing. So what was Freud's actual view of personality? Freud believed that personality results from the mind's three systems: the id, the ego, and the superego. Id, which in Latin means it, is the reservoir of unconscious psychic energy that strives to satisfy basic sexual and aggressive drives, operates on the pleasure principle, and it demands immediate gratification. The second part of Freud's personality theory was the ego, which means I in Latin, largely unconscious executive part of personality that operates on the reality principle, seeks to realistically gratify the id's impulses to bring long-term pleasure, contains our partly conscious perceptions, thoughts, judgments, and memories. The third part of Freud's personality is the superego, which super means above I. Focuses on the ideal behavior. It strives for perfections, acts as moral conscious by representing internalized ideals and standards for judgment and for future aspirations. Freud believed that the ego did its best to satisfy the id, the unconscious energy, while also satisfying the superego, these internalized ideals. This iceberg image is used frequently to discuss how the majority of what is happening inside our minds is unconscious, as you can see below the waterline. However, unlike the parts of a frozen iceberg, the id, ego, and superego do interact. Freud did propose that our personalities change through certain developmental stages. There are 5 stages according to Freud. The first stage is oral, 0 to 18 months. The pleasure centers on the mouth are the focus, sucking, biting, and chewing. The second stage is the anal stage from 18 to 36 months. Pleasure focuses on bowel and bladder elimination, coping with demands for control. The phallic stage is from 3 to 6 years. Pleasure zone is the genitals, coping with incestuous sexual feelings. The fourth stage is latency, which lasts from age 6 to puberty. This is a phase of dormant sexual feelings. And the last stage is the genital stage from puberty on, and this is the maturation of sexual interest. Freud claimed that if we had anxiety about something specific and we did not want to address the conflict, we would engage in using defense mechanisms. Freud believed that the ego protects itself with tactics that reduce and redirect anxiety by distorting reality within these defense mechanisms. Defense mechanisms are the ego's protective methods of reducing anxiety by indirectly and unconsciously distorting reality. One of the first defense mechanisms is repression, which underlies all other defense mechanisms, according to Freud. It is sometimes incomplete and may be manifested as symbols in dreams or slips of the tongue. The next defense mechanism is regression. When faced with a mild stressor, children and young orangutans seek their caregivers. Freud might have interpreted these behaviors as regression, a retreat to an earlier developmental stage. This slide shows 6 well-known defense mechanisms according to Freud. The left column lists the defense mechanism. The middle column talks about unconscious process employed to avoid the anxiety-arousing thoughts or feelings, and the last column gives an example. So the first one is regression. It's a retreating to a more infantile psychosexual stage where some psychic energy remains fixated. An example is little boy reverts to the oral comfort of thumb sucking in the car on the way to his first day of school. The next defense mechanism is reaction formation. This is switching unacceptable impulses into their opposites. Repressing angry feelings, a person displays exaggerated friendliness. The third defense mechanism is projection, disguising one's own threatening impulses by attributing them to others. The thief thinks everyone else is a thief. This is an El Salvadoran saying. The fourth one is rationalization, offering self-justifying explanations in place of the real, more threatening unconscious reasons for one's actions. An example would be a habitual drinker says he drinks with her friends just to be sociable. The fifth one is displacement, shifting sexual or aggressive impulses toward a more acceptable or less threatening object or person. A little girl will kick the family dog after her mother sends her to her room. And the last one is denial, refusing to believe or even perceive painful realities. A partner denies evidence of his loved one's affair. Freud believed that repression, the basic mechanism that banishes anxiety-arousing impulses, enables other defense mechanisms, 6 of which we just reviewed. One other way to find out about personality, besides psychoanalysis, is through projective tests. These are personality tests that provide ambiguous stimuli designed to trigger projection of one's inner dynamics. The first projective test we'll talk about is the thematic apperception test, or the TAT. It's a projective test in which people express their inner feelings and interests through the stories they make up about ambiguous scenes. Probably the most widely used and widely known is the Rorschach test, which was a set of 10 ink blots designed by Hermann Rorschach. This seeks to identify people's inner feelings by analyzing their interpretations of the blots. On the right you will see an example of a Rorschach ink blot, and we could look at this and someone could tell you what they see by viewing this. Some people who use this test are very confident that the interpretation of the ambiguous stimuli will reveal unconscious aspects of the test taker's personality. However, we know overall that projective tests are very highly subjective to the person evaluating them, and they are not consistent nor accurate when identifying aspects of a person's personality. So we've learned a lot about Freud so far and psychoanalysis. Modern research contradicts many of Freud's ideas. The first is that development is lifelong and it is not fixed in childhood. Freud believed what happened in childhood was the key to understanding a person's functioning. Unfortunately, our development changes throughout our lifetime and not just during the childhood period. Freud overestimated the parental influence, and peer influence was underestimated. The Oedipus complex is questioned, as well as the Electra complex. Gender identity develops earlier than Freud theorized and is possible without influence of same-sex parent at home. Some other contradictions are Freud believed that dreams disguise and fulfill wishes. This is disputed, as is the idea that suppressed sexuality causes psychological disorders. Freud's questioning technique may have created false memories of abuse, and scientific shortcomings and after-the-fact explanations of characteristics fail to predict behaviors and traits. So since Freud was looking at young adults mostly, he was asking about things in the past, and therefore the after-the-fact analysis is highly suspect and highly subjective.